Can you hear that? The gentle snap of the fire, the warmth of the embers. I'm Nasrallah. Tonight, the Viking trading voyage for sleep endless days at sea 900 AD, slow historical travel story, is our shelter. Leave the cold world behind, come closer to the hearth, and let your worries turn to ash as we begin. The fire breathes tonight. Hear the low, slow hiss of wet pine sap burning, a sound older than kingdoms. An amber glow touches the damp salt spray. The North Sea air is cold and vast. Listen closely, listen closely. Hear the crackle, crackle, crackle of a Viking shore fire 900 years ago. They sat just like this, huddled against the wind, eyes wide against the immense dark, or the blinding, endless, endless day. We remember the sharpened axes. We remember the hoard of gold. But the forgotten secret of the Viking longship was not the voyage of raiding. It was the relentless, desperate quest for simple rest. How do you lull a crew of 20 strong men to true, deep, hailing sleep when the ocean itself never sleeps and the sun never truly sets for weeks on end? I am Nasrallah, your guide through the quiet, slow tides of history. This is the Historalube. Tonight we seek that silence, the essential truth of the sleeping longship. We sail on the Nar, the heavy trading vessel, not the lean dragon of war, but a wide-bellied cradle, rolling, rolling, rolling over the indifferent Atlantic. The purpose is trade, furs, amber, walrus, ivory, but the real currency traded was sanity itself. The wood groans a deep, profound sigh, the sound of cedar against water, the sound of ship against time. It is the rhythm they clung to, a constant, constant, constant presence. When all else felt fluid and terrifying, they sailed northward and eastward, seeking the silver of Byzantium, seeking the river, roads to the Orient. But they had to navigate a terror greater than squalls. They had to navigate the broken clock of the sun. The summer voyage was one of white night. The sun barely dips below the horizon. The light lingers, golden and gray, hour after hour after hour, blurring the boundary between vigilance and rest. The human mind needs true darkness. The Viking mind desperately needed darkness to reset, to dream, to truly cease, to forget the relentless motion of the hull, the rhythmic thump of the water. How did they cheat the light? How did they conquer the endless day? They sought a different kind of trade. They traded effort for exhaustion, trading noise for eventual silence. They carried more than furs. They carried blankets of thick wool, a technology of woven darkness, creating small enclosed spaces below deck, a contained darkness, a crafted darkness against the immense infinite brightness outside. The skalds did not always sing of glory. Sometimes the skalds sang of monotony, soft monotonous chants of mapping, listing the stars in sequence, listing the ports they had passed, a hypnotic recitation, a story designed not to excite the blood, but to induce the deepest, deepest, deepest rest. The endless journey was a slow torture, where the mind became slippery, where 2 days blurred into one unending watch. The sound of the ship was their only anchor. The creak, the splash, the creak. The endless water song. Settle in close. Let the scent of burning pine soothe you. We will explore the trade routes of their minds, the burden of endless slow travel, and the forgotten essential technologies of sleep. A history so slow, it becomes a lullaby itself. Settle in, let the fire breathe. Let the story drift. The fire is here now. It lives only for the moment. Hear the timber shiver and snap. Listen to the wood sighing as it turns to light. The scent is pine sap, sweet and thick. It is an ancient smell. The light is not white. It is an amber glow, deep and old. It paints shadows high on the carved wood of the longhouse. We sit by this fire, now 900 years later. We pretend we know the Vikings. We tell tales of blood and bronze. But here is the slow secret, the forgotten truth. Their most valuable trade was not silver. It was not slaves or fine ruse furs. Their greatest trade was the silence of deep sleep, the endless journey, the slow rocking, the constant damp. How did men survive the endless day, the endless day at sea? We pull away slowly from the warmth. We must remember the cold. This heat you feel, this small mercy, is utterly denied them for months. The trading voyage was a spiritual trial, a systematic test of the failing mind. They left the land, the fixed points, the certainty of where the sun would rise. They embraced the vast, featureless gray plain of the North Atlantic. It was not blind heroism they chased. It was coin and the slow, inevitable erosion of the self. The self must dissolve to survive the unending water. Think of the sounds that never stop. The water is a hungry beast, always licking at the hull. A relentless percussive rhythm. Thwack, splash, hiss. The biting cold finds the marrow of the bone. It is a heavy, wet cold. It is not crisp winter air. It is the damp of the woolen cloak, the saturated leather, the constant spray from the prow. They are never truly dry. They are cold and wet and waiting. The smell is overwhelming, a suffocating blanket. The scent of 36 men confined for weeks. The rank odor of stale fish oil and human fear. The acidic tang of salt and sweat and old vomit trapped deep in the bilge. The heavy mustiness of unwashed bodies pressed together, seeking the smallest share of borrowed warmth. They were traders. They were explorers. They were also just wet, cold, tired men, desperate for the solid silence of land. The moral grays of this slow history are dark. They sailed east, sometimes south, toward the wealthy lands. They carried heavy furs, iron goods, walrus ivory. But what did they sell of themselves on the way? They sold their comfort. They sold their quiet. They sold their dreams. The longship had no shelter, no true cabin, only a canvas awning. They slept where they sat bracing against the endless spray. They lived in a kind of half-sleep, half-waking state, mind never truly shuts down. It listens for the shift in the wind. It waits for the sudden wave, the rogue, wave the punishing wave. The human cost was constant awareness. They sought riches, but paid in full with perpetual wakefulness. They arrived at market, hollowed out, heavied men, trading their precious waking hours for gold. They sold their capacity for true rest to buy a future. Look back at the fire now. The light is soft, the sound is safe. Remember the sea, the sound, the cold, the cold, the cold. This journey was endless days, endless days, endless days. A slow, hypnotic torture for the mind, for the mind, for the soul. It was the cost of trade. And when they finally sold their goods, they felt a deep, exhausted need for only one thing. Not drink, not women, not glory, but the heavy, beautiful oblivion of deep, deep sleep. The fire is licking the cold air tonight. It pulls the shadows long and thin across the fjord stone. Listen closely to the crackling wood. Hear that sound, a whisper of 1,000 forgotten things. The scent of burning pine oil hangs heavy and sweet. An amber glow of false sun in the endless dark. We watch the longship drift far out on the black water. A ghost ship waiting. They were traders, not just raiders. They were seeking silver furs and a silence deeper than the ocean floor. But there is a secret the sagas never tell. What did the Vikings truly trade for when they pushed out past the known world, beyond the edges of the map? Was it wealth, or was it something far more valuable? Was the greatest commodity they sought merely sleep? Deep, endless sleep on the water. The ocean is a cradle, a slow rocking motion. Day after day, the same wave patterned the same groan of the oak hull. The world shrinks to the size of this deck. There is only the rhythm of the oars, the rhythm of the breathing, the rhythm of the waves. This is the endless day. The sun never truly sets this far north in the summer months. It just circles the sky, a relentless golden eye, and sleep becomes a luxury, a broken promise. The mind never fully rests. The longship sails. It sails through the fog, a thick, wet blanket. It sails through the spray, a cold sting on the skin. This is the trade route. This is the silence they buy with their sweat and their fear. The voyage demanded a sacrifice of time, a trade of comfort for ambition. Imagine the mind state of the man who has seen the sun for 80 straight days, who cannot rely on the simple division of dark and light. His reality becomes fluid. His memories become unreliable. The edge of the boat, the line between life and the freezing abyss, it becomes the only certainty. They carried the history of one shore to the history of another shore. We look out at the land. They sought Russia, Byzantium, the silver mines of the East. These voyages were not just raids. They were the veins of the medieval world. They connected the Irish Sea to the Volga River. Think of the treasures they brought back. Not just swords, but finely woven silk dyed purple by Roman artisans. Not just iron, but spices that tasted of desert sun. They carried the history of one shore to the history of another shore. They were the bridge builders of the Dark Age. The weight of the world was carried in the belly of this Odin beast. The mystery remains embedded in the ice and the silt. They followed the stars, the forgotten paths, the rivers that looked like silver threads. The rivers that looked like silver threads, leading them, always leading them away from the comfort of their fjords, toward the chaos of commerce. The legacy is not just the sagas carved in stone. The legacy is the very map of Europe, redrawn by the keels of their ships. A silent transformation, a persistent movement, the trade that changed everything quietly, secretly. They sought to conquer the geography of isolation, to make the distant near, to make the foreign familiar. They brought back silver that flooded the markets of Scandinavia, silver that bought power-built halls, changed marriage contracts. But they also brought back the concept of endless horizons, the knowledge that beyond the ice, beyond the black water, was always something more, something shining, something dangerous. The trade was brutal, the danger was constant. The price was always paid in lost brothers, paid in broken bodies, paid in the sacrifice of peace. The fire now whispers lower. The amber glow softens. We have traveled far today, across the endless sea time. We understand the physical cost of their trade. But what of the metaphysical cost? What was the price they paid, not in silver, not in furs, but in sanity? What were the silent agreements made when men were desperate, tired, and far from home? We feel the exhaustion settling in, the deep weariness of the journey. Next time, we will focus on the most valuable cargo they ever carried. Not the gold, not the silk, but the ghost that followed every longship, the silent passenger that dictated every turn, every battle, every dream. The ghost of hunger, the ghost of winter, the ghost of the silent partner waiting in the darkness. The scent of burning pine still clung to their memory. The smoke, the fire, the crackling wood, the last safety of the shore. We left that amber glow behind. We traded that warm earth for the water. Now there is only the vastness, only the endless sigh of the swell. A world of cold spray, a world of rough wood, a world that demands you listen closely to the breathing of the ship itself. We are adrift in the great sleep trade. This voyage is not measured in leagues alone. It is measured in the slow drain of days, the relentless rocking, the rhythm. Do you remember the fire, the sharp, bright heat against the black night? That sound, that powerful crackling sound. It is gone now, replaced by the whisper of the sailcloth, the whispering whisper of the heavy sail that holds the wind, that pulls us eastward into the unknown harbors of the Ruse, for skins, for silver, for the great sleep. How long has it been? 5 sunrises, 6 sunrises. The days bleed into the days. The routine is a prayer. The constant shift of the weary oar. The bailing of the bilge water. Always cold, always there. The chewing of the dried fish, tasteless, but necessary for the body, necessary for the mind, to keep the great sleep from consuming us, the sleep of the deep water. They call us traders, they call us raiders, but we are merely keepers of the rhythm, the keepers of the keel through the unending heave. The longship is our world now, a slender, fragile sliver of wood against the ocean's slow indifference. Feel the rough wool of the cloak against your skin. Feel the cold wetness seeping into the decking. Smell the stored tallow, the damp hemp rope, the faint musk of men who have not known dry land for too long. Too long. The journey itself becomes the destination, the constant motion, the never-ending pull. We move not by sight of land, but by the knowledge of the stars, by the memory of the sun's highest arc. The North Star hangs unwavering, a pinprick of frozen stillness. It is the only truth we trust now, the only promise that the world is anchored somewhere beyond this liquid grave. The sea demands something from you. The sea demands your vigilance. Day after day, hour after hour, the water rushes by, a hypnotic blur of gray and green, always moving, always moving, always whispering. What secrets does the sea keep? What ancient promises does the water hold? It swallows sound, it swallows light, it swallows fear. We are sailing not just for wealth. We are sailing for the strange peace that comes from absolute exhaustion. The true trade is the barter of our safety for the hypnotic promise of the horizon, always retreating, always waiting. The fire is a distant dream now, the sound of the shore, a forgotten melody. Only the wind, only the water, only the steady thrum of the longship's heart, pulling us deeper, pulling us further into the endless, endless days of the great sleep trade. We stare into the amber heart of it now. The fire, a small hot god in the vast cold dark. It does not warm the soul. It only warms the skin. A desperate warmth snatched from the biting air. We are far from the hearth gods now, far from the clean stone homes of the fjords. This warmth is temporary, a brief shield against the truth of the voyage. The truth is the smell of the ship. It clings to everything. It clings to the thick woolen tunics. The scent of wood smoke is a lie, a beautiful lie. It masks the heavy stench beneath, the smell of ancient salt and stale fish oil, the sour tang of unwashed bodies pressed too close for too long, day upon endless day. The air itself is thick heavy with damp breath, and the sound, listen close, listen deep, hear the rhythmic groaning of the wet oak hull. It is the ship complaining, a slow, low complaint against the merciless pounding. The waves are tireless, are relentless. Swash and drag, swash and drag. The water always near, always threatening to reach over the low gunwale. The sound of the sea is the sound of our constant debt. The sea demands tribute. The sea demands vigilance. It never allows the mind to truly settle. We talk of trade. We talk of silver. We talk of the rich lands to the east, where the silks are waiting. But the moral gray of the journey is not in the silver. The moral gray is woven into the very cordage, the silent cargo beneath the deck, the people who breathe but do not speak, whose lives are the currency of this cold exchange. We carry them south. We carry them far from their homes, trading one human life for the dream of wealth, for the fragile promise of winter stores. This is the hidden cost of the slumber voyage, the human cost, the heavy cost. We sit by the fire and tell stories of glorious raids. We speak of strength and honor in the long hauls, but the heat of this fire cannot burn away the shame. The fire cannot melt the ice that forms around the conscience. It is easier to be a warrior. It is simpler to fight and die by the axe than to live day after day with the weight of this quiet transport. The moral grays are not shadows cast by the sun. They are woven into the very fabric of the sea. They are heavy, heavy, heavy. The cold seeps back in the moment you look away from the flame. The cold reminds you of what you have done. The cold reminds you of what you carry. The cold reminds you that survival is rarely clean. Survival is a messy, brutal trade. We trade our souls for sleep. We trade our future peace for present warmth. We trade the truth for the silence of the ocean. The fire crackles loud now, a sharp snap as the pitch catches. It throws amber light onto the tired, strained faces. The faces of men who have seen too much silence. The faces of men who know they are trading stolen lives for necessary grain. It is necessary, they whisper to themselves in the dark. Necessary for the clan. Necessary for the children far away. But the North Sea does not care for necessity. It only cares for consequence. The scent of burning pine is intoxicating, a desperate comfort. We cling to this comfort, we clutch at it. But the truth is in the deep, hollow sound of the ship, the heavy creaking as it rides the cold swells. The journey demands more than muscle. It demands a quiet amputation of the things you once held sacred, a slow surrender to the ethics of the endless water. The sea remembers everything. Everything, everything, everything. We travel for sleep. We travel for wealth. But sometimes we only travel to forget. And the sea refuses to let us forget. It holds the debt close. The fire is ash now. The silence remains. An empty harbor remembers the weight of the longships. But the hulls are dust. The masts are splinters. The great voyage ended not with a trumpet, but with the whisper of withdrawal. They left their faint marks, the line where the high tide meets the dry stacked stones, the geometry of a failed camp, a broken coma-rusted nail, trinkets swallowed by the growing moss. The moss grows slow. The earth forgives nothing. The deep cold keeps the story locked tight. We search the broken ground. The earth gives up its secrets slowly. So slowly, the mind must adjust to the pace of centuries. What did they leave here? Beyond the memory of their heavy breath, beyond the scent of burning pine that still clings to the peat. They built their dream of trade. They sought th, white fur, the heavy amber, the walrus ivory. They etched their names on the world's forgotten edges, and then they vanished. They vanished, they vanished, they vanished. Like the mist at dawn, a fleet of ghosts sailing back into the saga. But the question persists, a hook caught deep in the history's throat. Why the sudden departure? Why did the slow dream break so fast? The sagas offer glimpses, a harsh word, a poisoned cup, a terrible winter. But the truth sleeps deeper than any scroll. They speak of hidden wealth, chests of heavy silver, spoils gathered from southern coasts, brought here only to be hidden, to be guarded by the silent sentinels of the north. Gold that sleeps under the watchful mountain, silver that sinks into the black peat bog. The true treasure was not the iron they brought. It was the secret they kept, a secret held by the dark waters, a secret guarded by the grinding stone of time. Think of the legacy, not the artifacts, not the ruins, but the sheer effort of the journey, the slow, hypnotic rhythm of the rowing man, the endless, endless day under the midnight sun, the desperate need to survive one more hour, one more endless watch. Survival is repetition. Survival is slow. They waited out the deep sleep of winter, huddled in the darkness of the earth houses, the wind singing its ancient slow song, a song of isolation, a song of cold, the flickering lamp, the scent of wet leather, the constant low murmur of men waiting to go home. The journey home for many never came. Their long sleep began here. In the cold, quiet ground they hoped to conquer. They became of the land they sought to master, stone and bone intertwined. But while we mourn the silence, we must remember the eyes that watched. The deep forest had inhabitants, people who knew the rhythm of the tide better than any visiting Viking. We have followed the journeyers, the men of the dragon ships. Now we must turn our gaze to the silent watchers, the ones who lived in the shadow of the arrival, the ones who saw the great ships come, not as opportunity, but as terrible intrusion. The Vikings brought iron axes and a reckless desire for wealth. The people of the shadow held a deeper wisdom, a sharper fear. Next time we unearth the first terrible meeting, the clash of steel and spirit, the silent war fought in the deepest woods, the moment the dream of trade became a slow, dark nightmare. 3. The silent watchers, the terrible truth of what met them in the cold trees. The fire is gone now. We are far from the hearth of the world, but the scent of the burning pine, it stays beneath the skin. It lingers in the lining of the cloak, a phantom warmth, a beautiful bitter memory. It was last night perhaps, or 1,000 nights ago. The amber heart of the ship, it pulsed one last time, a slow, slow beat against the black velvet water, the crackling sound, the deep, slow sound. It promised safety, it promised land. It asked for nothing but your presence. Now only the water whispers, only the longship breathes, a shallow, shuddering breath of wood. You remember the glow, don't you? That fierce orange light licking the mast. It was the last piece of home we carried. Now we carry only the cold blue distance. Only the endless water, endless blue, endless gray. This is 3, the middle passage, the place where the trading journey stops being about silver and starts being about soul. Stop and listen close. What do the Vikings truly trade when they leave the fjords? They seek amber, they seek fur, they seek the shining coils of Miklagard, but they pay for it with something far more precious. They pay with stillness. They pay with sleep. This is the great secret of the Northern Sea Voyage, the forgotten bargain of 900 AD. How do you sell sleep and still survive? How do you find rest when the cradle never stops swaying? The sway, the endless hypnotic sway. The longship is not a home. It is a machine for consuming time, a beautiful consuming mouth. It eats the hours. It swallows the days. We are no longer traveling. We are simply moving. Always moving, always moving. The sun rises and the sun sets, but the horizon remains exactly the same. A seam of silver stitching the ocean to the sky. The wood groans beneath us. It is a living thing, demanding attention. It screams soft, muffled low demands. Water, water, water. The bilge water is black and slow, a steady rhythm of despair. Splash and surge, splash and surge. The crewman by the rudder. His eyes are fixed on the wake. The white, furious froth behind the stern. It is the only thing that changes. The relentless destruction of the past moments, washed away instantly. There is no past here, only the eternal present of the wave. Try to sleep now. Try to close your eyes when the world is never silent. The wind sings a high, thin song in the rigging, a lonely siren call of distance. It promises nothing but more distance. The salt crusts the eyebrows. It burns lightly, sweetly, lightly. You can taste the sea, even in your sleep, if you can find it. The true rest is elusive. It hides beneath the consciousness. It hides behind the cold, damp fear. We snatch moments, a quick, heavy drop of the head against a coil of rope. The dreams, they are strange and short, flickering images of green earth, the solid feeling of stone beneath the heel. Then the violent jerk of the boat, the splash of the bow wave against the planking, and the world is liquid, always moving. The mind fights the movement. It craves the stillness of the grave or the hearth, but the boat says no. The ocean says no. You must trade your stillness for motion. You must trade your deepest sleep for the promise of the East. We are merchants of motion now, sellers of movement. Every mile is bought with an hour of alertness. Every wave is a reminder of the price. We have paid too much already. We are owed the harbor. We are owed the calm, quiet arrival. But the sea does not negotiate. The sea does not care for futures or debts. It only offers the deep gray mirror, reflecting back the tired face of the traveler, reflecting back the endless blue, endless gray. We must endure the movement. We must endure the cold light of the north. We must wait for the sleep that comes only with land. Wait with me. Breathe with the boat. Feel the heavy rhythm of the sea. Slow, slow, slow. We are moving towards the market, but we are becoming the goods ourselves. Tired, worn, salty, and sold to the sea. Traders traded. The journey continues. Slowly, always slowly. The fire breathes low now, a bed of deep amber heat. The sound is a slow hiss, a gentle warning from the wood. We watch the sparks climb and die. Tiny, brief stars above the longship. The endless dark waits just beyond the glow. The cold, the true owner of the night. It presses against the warmth we have stolen. It finds the thin cracks in the wood. It finds the places where the heavy furs shift. The cold remembers the endless distance, the punishing distance we have traveled, and the distance we must yet go. This journey demands everything. It demands strength. It demands silver. It demands silence. And silence is the heavy price we pay. We sit and watch the embers soften and try not to speak of the cargo below. The wealth we carry is not just silver rings. It is not just northern furs. It is the quick breath of living things, the heavy cost of human lives packed tight, thralls bought and traded, sold and owned. They are silent down there, the quiet weight of things taken, the moral gray of the northern sea. How does a man reconcile the warmth of this fire with the chill fear of the thrall below deck? How does a man find easy sleep when his wealth is made of fear? This is the great question of the voyage, the secret shame we carry with the furs. We are merchants. We are seekers of distant things. We tell ourselves we offer them a better life, a different servitude, a future fate. But the scent of the burning pine cannot mask the truth. The burning pine cannot erase the knowledge. We hear no cries. We hear no pleading now. Only the slow, rhythmic shifting of the hull. The water whispering against the wood. But the silence is louder than any shout. The silence of things unjustly held. The silence follows us across the water. It follows the ship like a shadow. We repeat the rhythm to forget. Row, row strong and steady. Pull, pull against the endless blue. We must earn the sleep we seek. We must earn the peace we crave. But peace is a luxury bought with a difficult coin. The hypnotic pace of the voyage is designed to numb the conscience, to grind the sharp edges of guilt into dust. Dust that settles on the deck, dust that settles in the mind. We look into the fire and see only the gold, the future, the harbor. We try not to see the haunted eyes, the exhausted shoulders, the silent despair. The fire offers temporary absolution. It licks away the immediate cold. It draws us in close. It promises warmth. But the fire is an illusion against the vast moral chill. The cold will return when the last ember fades. The silent sea of the thralls will rise sleep that is earned with such effort, sleep that is shadowed by what we carry. We are Vikings, we are traders, we are fathers. We are men who carry the weight of the moral gray, and the weight is heavier than any load of silver. The smoke rises slow and straight tonight, carrying our unspoken burdens up to the cold sky. The endless distance watches us wait and judge. The cold watches and waits. The fire sinks, the embers whisper down. We breathe the scent of pine smoke. We breathe the silent lie of easy wealth. We wait for the coming of the endless dawn, and wait for sleep that will not come fully free. The long shadow stretches now across the weary marketplace. The echoes of the bargaining, the harsh guttural whispers of trade, they have faded. The great ships sit low in the water, lighter now, emptied of the heavy furs. The dark iron, the resinous pine, they sit lighter but heavier still, with the weight of the silver, the cold hammered weight of the dirham, the long slender flow of the Arabic coin. It is the metallic taste of success, the true cold truth of the voyage, measured, not in leagues sailed, but in the final count of silver circles. We look at the ledger now, the worn parchment, the black ink bleeding into the fiber, a record of profit, a record of loss. But what ledger records the silence? What scroll counts the memories? The days when the sun never set, the endless days of white light, the sleep that never truly came, only the drifting, the endless drifting. The cargo is gone, but the ghosts of the cargo remain. They cling to the rough woolen cloaks. They hide in the splintered wood of the oar, the faint scent of the foreign spice, a ghost scent, a memory haunting. We speak of the great transaction, the fur for the silver, the amber for the silk. But sometimes there is a single thing, a lost item, a fragment that tells a deeper tale, perhaps a bead of turquoise, dropped onto the deck, rolled into a seam, a tiny jewel from distant Persia, forgotten by the merchant, unseen by the Viking hand, a secret waiting for the archaeologist's brush, a tiny secret, a secret left behind, or the silk, the rich dark crimson silk, unfurled in the winter light, so soft against the hardened palm. A thread of that silk remains, wrapped around the hook of a sleeping chest, a single bright forgotten strand, carrying the DNA of the trade route, the phantom journey of the worm, the shadow work of the weaver, the slow, deliberate journey of the merchant ship. The cold silver, the cold, see the cold truth. The ship turns home now. It sails back towards the gray northern skies, towards the hearth fire, towards the long sleeping dark. The silver will be buried. It will be hammered into rings. It will be used to buy land. It will feed the children through the winter famine. This is the legacy of the voyage, the tangible warmth bought by endless cold. But the mystery persists. What did the North truly gain? Beyond the metal, beyond the cloth, the traveler returns changed. He brings back the weight of the silver. Yes, but he also brings back the knowledge of the East, the memory of their great libraries, their complex systems, their maps of the world that stretch further than any Norseman dared to dream. The map that defines their world begins to shift, begins to stretch. We think they brought back only wealth, only coins, only trinkets. But what if they brought back something hidden, something dangerous, a power that could reshape the very understanding of their gods, the very structure of their society, a power wrapped not in silk, not in iron, but in the delicate, dry substance of the ancient book. Next time we leave the ship, we watch the travelers return to the fjord. But what secret treasure did they keep wrapped tightly, hidden beneath the heavy furs? A treasure of words, a single forbidden manuscript, whispering new secrets into the cold northern night. A stolen secret that changes everything. Prepare to hear the rustle of stolen parchment, the terrifying power of the foreign letter. The Viking book of shadows awaits. The voyage has become the only memory. We stand now far from the sheltered fjord, far from the scent of burning pine. But the fire lingers still, does it not? The fire we left behind. Listen close to the cold water, lapping the hull. Can you hear it still? That crackling sound, the sound of safety, the sound of wood giving way to heat, a furious amber glow, pushing back the shadow of the night. That was home, that was solid ground. Now there is only this rolling gray expanse, this endless blue commitment. Remember the hearth, remember the warmth against the damp wool. It was a memory of rest that fueled this longship, a memory of deep, unbroken sleep. We traded that warmth, that stillness, for the relentless movement of the wave. We traded the easy dark of the forest for the witty open, terrifying dark of the sea. And what was the trade worth? What was the price of this weary progress? It was the loss of the lullaby, the loss of the anchored breath. Look out now at the horizon. It is 900 years past the Christ King's birth, and the journey stretches itself out, a tightening rope pulled taut across the world. This is for endless day at sea. The sun rises, and it refuses to set fully, a white ghost hovering low in the north. It denies us the true deep dark that breeds restorative sleep. The men move in shades of muted gray. The salt is sharp against the chapped lips. The hands ache with the grip of the oar, but they must not stop. They cannot stop, because stopping means drifting, and drifting means failure. Failure means no silver no, beats no foreign cloth for the settlement. It means the emptiness of the coming winter. The trade demands this perpetual motion. The trade demands this constant wakefulness. This is the life of the Viking merchant sailor, a strange, sleep-deprived warrior. He fights not against arrows or axes right now. He fights against the heavy drooping of his own eyelids. He fights against the memory of the soft moss bed. The ship is a creature of rhythm, a massive heartbeat on the water. Creak, splash, sigh. The sound of the water slipping beneath the keel is hypnotic. Too hypnotic, perhaps. It tries to pull the mind down, 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 into a heavy slumber that is too dangerous to take. A nap becomes a death sentence out here. If the lookout sleeps, the reef waits. If the rower slumps, the current drags. So they must remain suspended. between sleep and waking, suspended between safety and the deep cold. The sea air itself becomes a heavy blanket, a weight pressing down on the consciousness. But watch the skald now. He moves slowly among the weary crew. He tells the tales of giants and of gold. He tells the tales of battles won in the snow. He speaks the sagas. He speaks the sagas to keep the minds active, to keep the eyes open. The stories are the fuel when the food is poor. The stories are the light when the sun finally fails for an hour. Repetition is the tool of the long voyage. The same motion of the oar, and the same pattern of the knot, and the same endless gray water, the same cold wind. It settles into the muscle memory. It quiets the frantic mind, but does not let it rest. We are trading fatigue for fortitude. We are trading comfort for commerce. The hold below us fills slowly with the promise of wealth, but the men above feel their own reserves empty slowly. They have traveled from the bright amber glow of the hearth to this cold blue truth of the journey, a truth where the only constant is the moving water. The only certainty is the lack of sleep, and they sail on because the memory of the fire demands the reward of the journey. They sail on because the price of the road must be paid. The embers hold the night now, a silent amber glow. The wood crackles slow. We sit closer tonight, closer to the heat, closer to the simple truth of fire, the only friend that never demands a debt, only heat. But the heat is a deception, a temporary kindness, because the truth of the voyage, the long gray truth, it settles deep beneath the skin. It is the cold that teaches. It is the cold that remembers, the chill that seeps up through the frozen earth, into the thick wool cloaks. The wool smells of brine and sweat, of stale grease and old fear, a heavy human scent. It clings to the air around this small light. The fire smells of pine, a sweet clean lie, a fragrance borrowed from the forests. We stole through the long forests, the silent forests. The men shift on the hard ground, a low guttural sound, a sigh that carries the weight of 1,000 miles, and the weight of what we traded, what we took to earn this small circle of warmth. The moral grays of trade. They are not sharp edges. They are slow burning aches, like a wound beneath the bandage. You forget it is there until the evening chill returns. What did you pay for the silver on your belt? What did you promise for the soft fur lining your hood? Was it a swift exchange of honest weight? Or was it the sudden FL, ash of steel, the quick breath taken, the life extinguished? The gods watch from the darkness. They do not judge the cold. They only observe the cost, the human cost. We are traders, we tell ourselves. We bring order, we bring goods. But sometimes we bring only hunger. And sometimes we bring only pain, and then we call it trade, to make the pain quiet in our own minds. The fire whispers, trade. The wood catches, cost. The fire burns slow. The truth burns slow. I look at the faces across the flames, hollowed out by the wind and the sun. They are not evil faces. They are tired faces. They are faces that carry the knowledge of what the gold demands, of what the distance demands. The cold sits in the bones tonight. It sits heavy and persistent. It is the accumulated chill of every sea spray, every endless day of rowing, every silent pact made in the twilight. The sea sound is a long, low moan now, far beyond our shelter. The sea never sleeps. It never forgives. It only repeats the same sound, the rush and drag of the tide, a monotonous chant. We carry the scent of the ship still, the rancid oil, the bilge water sour and thick, the hard dry bread, the memory of wet leather pressing into the shoulder, all of it washed away briefly by the pine smoke. But the scent returns, the deep smell of struggle. We are rich men, perhaps, in furs and in silver, but we are poor in comfort, poor in clean conscience. The comfort we seek tonight is only the brief reprieve. Before the journey begins, the fire flickers, now lower, casting long dancing shadows on the rock face. The shadows are our hidden thoughts, the things we will not speak in the daylight, the things we keep locked behind the tired eyes. The flame hypnotizes. It draws the focus away from the difficult questions. It says, look only at me. Look only at the warm. Forget the long trail of ice. Forget the faces left behind. But the heat cannot truly reach the soul. The deep cold remains. It is the companion of every voyage, the silent partner of every Viking. The heat only reminds us how fiercely we fight for this momentary shallow warmth. We endure the cold. We accept the cost because somewhere far away, a new fire awaits, a final destination, a home built on the ashes of those forgotten journeys, a home that must be earned by the slow burning truth. The silver was heavy. It pressed into the palm. It weighed down the mind. Dirhams from distant deserts, a cold foreign, weighed a whisper of empire. The long boats, the Nars, they rested low in the water now. They rested heavy with the consequences of the journey. The furs, the slaves, the amber, the brittle honey. They traded their time, their sweat, their sanity, for this metallic echo of the Orient. This is the legacy. The legacy is the silver, the weight of the silver. The legacy is the blood mixed into the mud of the marketplace. New language scars on the tongue. New roots etched in the water. The Vikings, they did not just sail, they connected. They were the slow nerve fibers of the ancient world, carrying stimulus, carrying shock, carrying wealth. And the wealth that changes everything. The memory of the humble farmstead fades when you feel the cold kiss of so much coinage. The legacy is not just the gold, it is the altered memory. The memory altered, forever changed forever. But what was lost for this gain? We see the weight of the silver, but we do not see the weight of the ghosts. They left men behind in the deep ruse forests, men who fell to fever, men who fell to the quick dark arrow, Men who simply vanished into the vast, indifferent wilderness. The silence of the northern woods swallowed them whole. The mystery is in the spaces between the successful trades. The mystery is in the logbooks where names are hastily crossed out. The water keeps these secrets. The cold flowing water holds the final story of the missing. The true cost is never counted on the manifest. The true cost is the slow erosion of the soul, the slow wearing down. They sailed too far to be truly the same. They saw the strange gods of the river people. They smelled the exotic spices of Constantinople dreams. And these sights, these smells, they cling to the leather of the boots. They cling to the rough wool of the cloak. They clung to the weary man when he finally returned home. He looked upon his own fireside and found it somehow small, somehow quiet. He had crossed the threshold of the known world. He had tasted the bitter fruit of relentless travel, and now the journey home was a heavier burden than the journey out, because he carried the world in his heart. The world, the weight, the weary wisdom. The legacy is complex a tapestry, woven with silver thread and broken bones. They built small settlements. They left behind their peculiar tools, their runic carvings. They married into the local tribes. A slow mixing of destinies, a slow braiding of blood. And today, we still find the evidence. The strange mound, the single perfect amber bead, buried deep in the soil. The legacy remains the deep, persistent hum of their travel. But there is one final silence, a silence they spoke of only in the depths of the winter dark, a knowledge they brought back from the Caspian shores, not of trade, not of silver, not of roots, but of a lore forgotten by their own sagas, a secret whispered to them by a blind hermit, a secret about the gods themselves. They traded for metals, but they hunted for something far more valuable, a relic lost to time, a truth buried beneath the great eastern rivers. Everyone remembers the axe, the fury, the raid. But what about the quiet quest? The secret they were truly seeking. The journey was long. The rewards were great. But what did they seek beyond the Durams? A certain map, a certain strange box, a key that unlocks the deepest winter. 5, we stop looking at the silver, and we start looking at the secret, the forgotten secret of the Viking king and the copper scroll. The memory always begins with the sound, the deep, wet hiss of the fire drawing breath, the longhouse fire, not the quick snap of a hungry flame, but the heavy thump of oak logs settling, a sound of true warmth. The glow was thick amber and blood orange. It painted the faces of the sleeping ones, and the smoke, the scent of burning pine and sweat and dry wool, a comforting perfume. We sailed toward those flames once. We sail away from them now. But listen close. This is the secret forgotten by the frantic history books. When the Norsemen pushed their dragon ships eastward or south toward the whispering waves of the great water, they weren't just trading furs for silver. They were trading their frantic lives for silence, trading the shore's clamor for the deep, slow breath of the endless ocean. This ultimate trade was for sleep, deep, true, hypnotic sleep. We are now swallowed by the vastness. The edge of the world is everywhere. The horizon has melted into a gray haze. The days merge into weeks now. The sun is a clock that lies. It rises and it falls, yes, but the movement beneath us never changes. The deep, steady rhythm of the hull against the swell. Sway, sway, a hypnotic pull, the pull of the deep water. The water is cold and green, not the bright blue of the summer fjord, but the iron green of deep purpose. The ship breathes a steady breath, a slow sigh of wood and pitch. We are travelers of the long now, not the quick sprint of a winter raid, but the patient, patient tread of trade, the slow accumulation of distance. Distance, distance. Every stroke of the oar is a meditation. Every creak of the mast, a whisper. The sail is full and tight. It sings a low, continuous hum, a lullaby built of stretched linen and wind. This is the sound of time slowing down to the speed of the current. The current determines all things now, not the chieftain's demand, not the hurried meal of the farmstead, only the current and the wind, the wind, the wind, the slow, persistent wind. The cold penetrates the layers of rough wool. It rests in the bones, a dull, steady ache. This ache is the price of passage. The mind seeks relief. It seeks a still point in the endless motion, and it finds that stillness in the absolute monotony, the relentless repeating pattern of the waves. Wave after wave after wave. There is a strange freedom in this repetition, a surrender to the movement. There are no quick thoughts out here, only the long, slow thoughts of survival and memory, memory of the fire, memory of the laughter left behind. What happens when the horizon never breaks, when the view is only water and sky? And water, the senses become starved for contrast, and yet they become intensely sharp. The faintest scent of salt spray is a revelation. The slightest shift in the wind's voice is a warning. We become creatures of the seas, immense breathing. Inhale, exhale. The water is a dark mirror. It shows us not our faces, but our deep fatigue, our vulnerability. We are small, small, small against this power. The sleep we find here is different. It is not the sudden heavy collapse of the warrior. It is a fragmented, deep, cold sleep, a sailor's rest, one eye open to th, pale indifferent stars, one ear listening for the tearing snap of the breaking rope. Sleep, 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 a precious cargo traded for endurance. We carry the quiet inside us now, the quiet that was traded for the clamor of the shore. We seek the eastern markets, the silver, the silk, the honey, but we have already purchased the greatest luxury of all, the right to move slowly, the right to simply be, suspended between the air and the deep, moving at the speed of the world's quiet turning, the world's slow, slow turning. We are held by the water. We are carried by the wind. And we wait for the land to rise up a dark promise on the edge of the sleeping sea. The fire now breathes deeper, a low amber sigh. It whispers of safety. It whispers of shore. But the memory, the cold memory, it clings to the soul, like sea foam drying in rough beard hair. It pulls us back, back to the longship, back to the waves. The voyage that promised wealth, the slow, relentless trade, the journey for sleep. You are warm now, but feel the deep, deep cold, the damp that seeped not just into the cloth, but into the bone itself. A persistent chill, a cold necessity. Hear the wood crackling here beside you. This is the sound of comfort. This is the sound of rest. But on the water, there was another sound, the constant protesting creak of the hull, pine bending against the enormous weight of the sea. A low, low moan, a constant vibration, a sound that ate sleep whole. The smell of the voyage, it stays with them always. A sharp, bitter mix of old brine, unwashed sheeps, wool heavy with sweat, and the metallic tang of sickness. Sickness that travels faster than the ship itself. Think of the cargo, not just the carved walrus ivory, white gold pulled from the far northern teeth, not just the soft, deep brown furs that warmed the backs of kings. Think of the other things they carried, the things they traded not for comfort, but for survival, the items weighed down by moral gray, the cost of living in the lean years, the gray, gray necessity, the cold, gray truth of trade in the northern ways. The deals struck quickly in foreign tongues, where goodwill was thin and trust was thinner. The silent transactions that purchased power, purchased a few more days of oil, a few more scraps of dried meat. The Viking knew the price of everything and the value of very little. He knew the weight of his own axe and the weight of the thing he was taking. Did they sleep soundly then, with the profits tucked deep below the deck boards? Did the rocking of the longship become a true cradle, or was it the restless tremor of consequence? The endless day, the sun refused to set properly in the high summer, a perpetual twilight of pale yellow and silver, and the mind yearned for darkness. The eyes prayed for the true black peace of night. The body fought itself. The spirit grew thin. They chased the true sleep, the deep, rewarding sleep that only comes when the work is honorable, when the conscience is clear. The salt crusts thick on the eyelids. The taste of brine never leaves the tongue, always chewing on the voyage, always tasting the sea. Now watch the fire, the smoke rises straight and true. It does not shift wildly with the desperate wind. They sought wealth, but more deeply, they sought a moment of stillness, a moment when the endless churning stopped, the churning of the water, the churning of the heart. They carried the secret that the greatest treasure was not the silver arm ring. It was the simple absence of cold, the simple sound of silence, the brief, sweet peace of a night, well earned. But the journey kept demanding a price, a piece of their soul for every mile traveled, a piece of their moral certainty for every trade made. They came home heavy with goods, and strangely light of spirit. They came home carrying the silence and the heavy, heavy memory of the gray necessity, the relentless, unforgiving cold, the cost of the long, slow sleep, the long, long journey. The trade was done, the silver weighed, the furs exchanged for amber deep. But what remains, what truly stays, long after the longship sleeps? Not just the coin, not just the gold, but the lines etched upon the earth, invisible lines root centuries old, mapping the measure of their worth. They left awake, a whisper trailing across the endless, endless wave, the sound of their slow, steady sailing, a secret the silent water gave, a legacy of seeking, a legacy of moving, always moving slow and deep, always moving while the world was sleeping. The smell of northern pine gone cold, the faint salt dried upon the sleeve, stories only the sea has told, secrets that only the water will believe. We know the names of kings who fell, we know the sagas bold and bright, but who can tell, who truly can tell, of the dreams they had in the dark northern night? The fear held close the quiet doubt, the homesickness that burned so slow, the things they spoke softly about, the secrets that only the sea could know. We forget the vast monotony, the days that blurred into the night, the slow, relentless constancy of light dissolving into light. They left no ledger for the soul, no inventory of the heart's expense, just the vast cold ocean hole and the deep, unknowable suspense. Were they searching for wealth, or were they searching for quiet? Were they running from chaos, or running toward peace? A slow, profound, deep, silent riot, a search that will never, never cease. The mystery is in the repetition, the endless rowing, the endless sleep, the human need for slow completion, the promises they struggled hard to keep. Look now at the scattered finds, a broken bead, a clasp of bronze, these small things left for later minds to whisper of the journeys gone, a piece of amber smelling of smoke, a shard of glass from Byzantium's wall, silent witnesses that gently spoke of the world that held them all. They traded, they traveled, they slept so sound. They left their mark, and then they passed, the memory buried in the ground, a shadow on the water built to last. We look at the map and see the line, from fjord to far distant shore, a single line, a single design. They traded, then they asked for more distance, more silver, more safety, more quiet for the slow return, the vastness of the sea's sobriety, lessons we must continually learn. But wait, the routes they charted were fragile lines. The silence they sought could not long keep, for every time the silver shines, another watcher watches while they sleep. A shadow stirs far, far away, not from the west, not from the north, a rising fear that marks the day when quiet trading loses all its worth. They sought the deep sleep, they sought the rest, but the world was turning, turning, turning fast. A hidden enemy puts them to the test, a dark threat too vast built to last. Next time, we look to the east where the great rivers flow and ask what happens when the slow rhythm breaks, when the silent voyage turns to slow, slow foe. The moment the sleeping dragon wakes, we ask what threatened the traitors' peace, the hidden cost of all their silent sleep, the thing that made their slow sailing cease, a secret held far beneath the deep. The greatest mystery is not where they sailed, but what waited for them when their sailing failed. The memory of the fire settles in the air, a small warmth against the infinite cold, a pinprick of fierce amber light, the scent of burning pine wood, drifting over the dark, endless water, the sound of the wood crackling low, a fierce, comforting sound, a memory of safety. In the belly of the longship, we think of the Vikings as masters of the waves, conquerors of the crashing deep, sailors obsessed with silver and iron. But what if the greatest battle they fought was not against the storm or the shield wall of their enemy? What if the struggle was deeper, a slow psychic erosion, the endless, unrelenting brightness of the far northern summer, the fight not for gold, but for one single true hour of shadow, a silent secret the sagas never tell, the desperate longing for darkness, for rest, for slumber, for deep stillness. We have sailed 6 episodes now. 6 finds us far north, deep into the trade wind's path. The North Star sits high above the mast, but the sun refuses to leave us. The sun watches, the sun stays. Always the light, always the light. The deck is never truly dark. The horizon bleeds a pale silver gold, even at the hour of the midnight bell. If we had such things, the sea remembers everything. The sea remembers the rhythm. The rhythm of the longship is our new heart, a slow, gentle rocking motion, a cradle on the deep. The water flows beneath the heavy oak keel. The keel cuts the surface, a long, smooth, shushing sound, a breath taken in, a breath let out. Shush, shush goes the bow wave. Listen closely now. The wind whispers a low story through the taut rigging ropes, a high, thin whine, a tired lament, the sound of thousands of leagues gone by. The deep hum beneath the planks is the sound of the ocean floor, sending its ancient, slow song up to us, up through the hull, through the timber, into the very bones of the weary crew. Look down at the decking wood. It is slick with salt and spray. It is damp with the eternal mist. The heavy damp wool cloaks smell of brine and sweat and distant peat smoke. They are scratchy, they are comforting. They hold the small pocket of warmth we managed to steal from the small fire, the one we remember, the one we needed. The cycle of day and night is broken. The sun watches, the sun stays. The men sleep in shifts, eyes shadowed by the lack of true night. They pull their leather caps low. They tuck their heads beneath the damp wool. They search for the illusion of shadow, a manufactured darkness, a small cave of rest. The mind needs the deep black velvet to truly stop, to truly let go. But the velvet never comes, only the pale, perpetual glow. We drift onward, we move forward. The oars rest mostly now. We trust the wind, we trust the current. The current is a slow, slow horse, pulling us northeast toward distant markets. The air is clean, the air is sharp. It bites at the exposed skin, but it cleanses the deep fatigue. The fatigue is a heavy blanket, but the movement keeps the blood awake. The movement keeps the heart beating a steady pace. Listen to the shush of the water. Shush, shush, shush. It is the only clock we have left. The rhythmic slow consumption of distance. The long drift. The slow passage of time. Time stretches out long and thin, like the shadows cast by the sun at midnight. Endless, but restful in its steady, unchanging presence. The gentle, hypnotic rocking continues. Rocking, rocking, rocking. We sail onward, toward shadow, toward rest. We sail onward. The fire breathes, it settles into a low amber hum. The wood beneath the pitch is whispering, now, a dry ancient sound that fights the wetness of the sea. Listen closely, listen. It is the sound of time folding in on itself. We sit here in the heart of the Norse dark, where the flames cast long flickering ghosts of men long gone. These were not simply explorers brave and bold. They were men haunted by calculation, haunted by the endless demand of the next tide, the next port, the next coin. Look at the smoke as it coils. It carries the scent of burning pine. But beneath that sweetness, there is the deeper, more bitter aroma, the smell of human effort, the salt sweat pressed into damp wool for 60 days, the rancid fish oil used to grease the timbers, the faint metallic tang of old fear. The cold is not merely a temperature. The cold is a presence. It seeps into the soul on these endless crossings. It smells of iron and deep water, a heavy, unforgiving chill that the meager fire cannot fully banish. It clings to the edges of the light, waiting for the fuel to fail, waiting for the sleep to come. But sleep is a fleeting dream here, a debt that grows heavier with every passing league. They trade their waking hours for miles. They trade their peace for profit. The cost is written not in their ledgers, but etched into the deep lines around their eyes. They carried silver, they carried iron, they carried fine furs destined for distant queens. But what of the invisible cargo they carried? The moral weight, the moral graze. We must speak of the human cost, the silence of the holds, where things that breathed were stored, things that were meant to be sold. That silence is heavier than any sack of wool. It is a profound, absolute quiet, interrupted only by the slow, steady thrum of the waves against the hull. This trading voyage, this great undertaking, it required a hardening, a slow, steady freezing of empathy, to stare across the vast, indifferent ocean day after endless day, and believe the gold at the end was worth the emptiness felt inside. They pulled the oars. The rhythm was hypnotic, slow, inevitable. Pull and pause, pull and pause. A metronome counting down the hours of exhaustion. Each stroke a moment stolen from life. A memory blurred, a thought unformed. The ache in the shoulders is a constant companion. The burn in the hands is a prayer muttered. The men become machines of endurance. But beneath the thick layers of leather and dirt, the human heart still asks questions. Questions without punctuation, without easy answers. Was the plunder worth the shadow it cast? Did the wealth amassed balance the nights spent in fear? We watch the flames curl and shift. The fire whispers of warmth and fleeting safety. But the shadows beyond the circle are vast. They speak of the moral compromise, the slow erosion of the self under the pressure of endless travel, of trading life for distance, trading sleep for survival. They desired peace, they desired glory, but they embraced the ambiguity. They lived in the spaces between raid and trade, between prayer and plunder. They were caught in the eternal cycle of need and navigation. The cold outside is absolute. The only truth is the heat right here, right now, in this small circle of comfort. But the scent of the sea, the memory of the chains, it permeates the wood, it permeates the air. It never leaves them. It never leaves the long, slow journey, the endless slow journey. We watch the fire burn down slow. We turn now to the silence. The great voyage is ended. The longships pulled high onto the shore grasses. The air no longer vibrates with the deep, rhythmic chant of the rowers. The men scatter like seeds in the northern wind. But the sea keeps its claim. It holds the memory of every wave, every sleepless watch, every shared meal of dried fish and cold hard bread, the deep, deep rhythm of the endless water. This is the legacy they could not unload, a permanent rocking in the soul. They carried more than furs and amber back home. They carried the weight of the horizon, the vastness that makes a man small. They carried the strange accent of the eastern markets, the scent of foreign incense clinging to their cloaks. 1,000 men left 1,000 tiny traces, scars in the sand where the mast stepped, the forgotten fire pit glowing faintly with dead ash. The compressed earth remembers the heavy burden of being away so long. The legacy is not just the treasure in the coffers, but the silent change in the way a man looks at the sky. He has seen the wide, wide world, and now his home feels small. His dreams are no longer bound by his village walls. His dreams are long dreams, wide dreams, deep dreams. Dreams that smell of salt and tar and distant pine forests. The deep, deep mystery of the returning soul. But there are always gaps in the sagas, always shadows between the lines of the chronicler's scrolls. What happened to the tally of the final trade? The goods exchanged far inland in the darkness. Not for silver, not for slaves, not for silk, but for something intangible, something essential. We return to the core quest for sleep, the relentless exhaustion of the sun that refused to set, the mind burning bright through the endless northern light. They needed peace, they needed release, a slow, quiet cessation of the thinking mind. What item did they offer that could truly buy rest? Was it a magical stone? Was it a whispered prayer? Was it a terrible sacrifice, paid in a desolate place? The mystery remains tucked tight beneath the years, the priceless trade that brought momentary stillness. They sailed for wealth, they sailed for fame, but they paid the highest price for simple peace, the deep need, the heavy desire for oblivion, for the slow release into the dark, soft velvet of true sleep. The records show the ships returned heavy with cargo, but the captain's own log ends abruptly in the middle of a sentence, a final entry scratched hurriedly, then abandoned, leaving the last dark secret forever untold, a secret swallowed by the river mud, a secret that dissolved in the taste of brine. We leave the wide ocean now. We look away from the great ports, and we turn our gaze inward to the silent resting places of the land. Deep beneath the winter's frozen earth, something unexpected waited, something cold, something heavy, something wrong. In the silent grave of a simple farmer, a man who never saw the coast, a man who claimed he lived his life in peace, we find a strange possession, a single broken relic of terrible iron, heavy, dense, alien to the northern world. It looks like a weapon, but it does not rust like earthly metal. Its composition defies the blacksmith's hammer. But what if this strange, dark shard, this heavy piece of shaped iron, was not mined from earth at all? Next time on HISTORY, the metal that fell from the sky, the meteorite sword, and the silent graves. I remember the fire. I remember the sound of it, not the wild, hungry roar of a forest fire, but the low, steady pulse on the longship deck, a small, contained world of heat, a quiet hiss of damp pine, a single ember lifting on the breath of the sea wind, an amber glow spilling over the wet oak hull. We watched the light flicker. We watched the shadows shorten and stretch, a momentary anchor in the chaos of movement, a scent of burning resin against the cold, sharp salt. We clung to that warmth, that illusion of stillness. But did you know the forgotten secret of the long voyage? It was not the cold that broke them. It was not the storm that crushed them. It was the endless, unrelenting day, the terrible loss of true darkness, the way the mind erodes when the sun never sets, never truly lets go. This is 7 of HISTORY, the Viking trading voyage for sleep, endless days at c. 900 AD, slow historical travel story. The Nar sails west, the Nar sails north. The wide sail is full a great heavy belly of wool. It pulls us relentlessly across the water. The water waits, the water holds us. It is a sheet of bruised pewter, stretching far beyond seeing. There are no landmarks now, only the shifting clouds and the memory of the shore. The days blend, the weeks blur. There is only the constant hypnotic rhythm of the ship, the deep thrum of the hull against the waves, the higher creak of the stressed rope rigging, the ceaseless complaining of the mast. Everything sings a monotone lullaby, a lullaby that does not permit sleep, a lullaby that forces wakefulness. The men move in slow motion. They are shadows of men, defined by effort, not by thought. They pull the ropes, they shift the ballast, they mend the wear. eyes are red-rimmed and distant. They search the horizon for something that is not there. They search for definition. They search for night. But the sun hangs high. It tracks its slow, cold arc just above the waterline. It promises no rest. It promises only continuation. The continuous day is a form of exquisite torture. The body is exhausted. The muscles are weeping for rest. But the brain refuses to surrender. It waits for the signal, the deep velvet blanket of night, the signal that never comes. How do you find deep, restorative sleep when there is no difference between noon and midnight? When the world is screaming, wake up, keep moving, they would wrap themselves tight in heavy skins. They would try to trick the mind. They would turn their faces to the wood. They would listen only to the sound of the deep water rushing past the keel. The only true darkness remaining was inside the head, a darkness they had to cultivate fiercely, a small pocket of surrender, a necessary blindness. Sometimes one of the older traders would take a handful of earth from a pouch, dry black soil carried from the homeland. He would let the dust run slowly through his fingers, a small ritual of stillness, a reminder that the world outside the boat was fixed, that fields existed, that roots held the ground. That movement was not the only state of being. The sea is pure movement. It offers no resistance. It offers no pause. It demands constant vigilance, constant forward flow. The flow pulls the mind apart slowly, molecule by molecule. It turns clear thought into a murky, swirling current. We are defined by the repetition, the scraping of the bailer, the sudden slap of the wave, the rough texture of the hemp rope, the taste of hard tack, and watered ale, the endless biting chill. We are travelers in time, not just space. We are moving so fast away from everything stable, away from the calendar of the seasons, away from the anchor of the hearth fire. We traded comfort for cargo. We exchanged still nights for silver and furs. We traded the soul's simple peace for the promise of gain. And the long ship sails on. The long ship sails, and the sun watches us. The sun never closes its eye. The deep blue water is always visible, and the terrible truth is whispered on the sea wind. The ocean is trying to lull us to sleep, but the light refuses to let us dream. The fire hisses a slow apology, a low sound swallowed by the vast black wetness. Outside the circle of heat, the pine knot sizzles, spitting resin into the amber glow. The warmth is an illusion here on the longship's deck. It touches the skin, but cannot reach the bone. The bone holds the cold. The bone remembers the gnawing, endless cold. The cold of the North Sea is not a sudden, sharp thing. It is a slow, persistent truth. It is a weight settled into the spine of every man. A damp cloak woven from mist and ancient brine. We sit in silence, watching the embers crumble, each collapse a tiny reminder of the day that burned away, the day that gave us nothing but slow miles and deep fatigue. The dampness rises from the sea floor. It clings to the thick wool of our tunics, wool that smells of salt and old sweat and sour pitch, the scent of 1,000 miles traveled without rest, the heavy smell of ambition mixed with fear. The moral gray is not painted on the sails. It lives right here by the small flame, in the shadows, beneath the cheekbones of the men who watch the fire. They watch the fire because they cannot watch the cargo. They cannot look too long into the darkness where the silent burden lies, the burden we carry for the silver, the silent weight that ensures our fortune, the cold silver traded for the warm human breath. This is the hidden cost of the great trade routes, not the broken mast, not the spoiled rye, but the price paid in silence, the price paid in human despair. The debt is counted in sleepless nights. The whispers of the weak travel on the wind, but they are silenced by the crackle of the burning wood. We choose not to hear. We choose the amber comfort of the fire. The fire tells us only what we want to believe, that this journey is righteous, that this silver is worth the gray stain upon the soul. But the cold knows better. The cold seeps into the spaces between the ribs, where the heart beats the rhythm of survival, not morality. Survival is a blunt instrument. It requires decisions that leave marks, that cannot be washed away by sea water. The men are tired beyond measure. Tiredness breeds a dangerous honesty. If they speak now, they might say too much. They might whisper the name of the man left behind. They might admit the full weight of the goods they haul toward Byzantium. So we keep the silence. We watch the tiny explosions of heat. The fire is a hypnotic distraction, a gentle lie we tell ourselves every night. The fire whispers rest. The fire whispers warmth. But the sea beneath the hull groans its true song, a long, low, slow, sighing sound, the true sound of this Viking trading voyage, a sound of relentless, unforgiving motion, motion that demands everything, everything except conscience. The wind changes direction just slightly, bringing the sharper smell of far-off northern ice, a reminder that even the fire is temporary. The true reality is the immense cold, the immense distance, the immense weight of the decisions made at dawn. The silence stretches out, a thick, suffocating blanket, heavier than the fog. We wait for the slow turning of the earth. We wait for the promise of land that may or may not absolve us. The fire dwindles. The embers glow red, then fade quickly to ash, leaving only the bone-deep cold and the scent of regret and the knowledge that we must light the fire tomorrow night and tell the same slow, hypnotic lie to survive. We must survive. We must survive. We must survive. The final amber light catches the curved prow of the ship. It is the light of 1,000 past days, a weary glow resting on the scarred planks. We have traveled far from the familiar fjord. The journey deepens, the journey shifts. The legacy is not the silver we carry. The legacy is the absence of sleep, the slow, hypnotic sway that replaced our dreams. We look back at the churning wake that fades to nothing. Nothing remains but the memory of the wave, the constant relentless push of the sea. The sea remembers every shadow, every passing whisper. It holds the names of those who did not return, their stories dissolved into the salt and the spray. We are the keepers now, the keepers of the journey, the weary navigators who watched the sun crawl endlessly, endless days, endless slow rotation. We sought trade, we sought riches, we sought a distant shore, but what we truly found was the stretch of time, unfolding like heavy linen, slowly, slowly, inevitably. The mystery hangs thick around us now. It is not the mystery of the destination. We have reached the mouth of the great river, the final resting point for this long sea passage. No, the mystery is what remains inside the man after the sea has taken its tribute, after the mind has surrendered to the rhythm of the hull. What knowledge is etched onto the soul that cannot be traded? What truth is held in the steady pulse of the heart, that relentless beat against the cold, wet world? Legacy is not written in runes on stone. Legacy is written in the silence between the heartbeats, the heavy silence of the long haul. We pull the thick woolen cloaks tighter. The air here is different now. It is not the clean, biting cold of the open ocean. It is damp, it is rich, it smells of damp soil and ancient roots. The river is vast, brown, slow, moving, a serpent coiling its way inland. It swallows the light. It offers a different kind of darkness, a darkness that hides rather than reveals. We have traded the endless expanse of the blue for the narrow, confining walls of the green, the vast dark forests waiting on the banks. They watch us, they listen, they hold their secrets close. We exchange the comfort of the known wave for the treacherous, hidden currents of the unknown water. The Nar sits low in the water, heavy with furs and iron, heavy with the weight of our long ambition. We have achieved the sea crossing. We have crossed the threshold of the deep. But the journey is not over. It never is truly over. It only changes its form, its texture, its demanding voice. The men speak in low, tired tones, their eyes reflecting the thick starlight that struggles through the trees. They count the losses, they count the gains. They settle their minds for the strange, slow trek ahead. The river is the path of gold. The river is the path of deep danger. The forests are full of shadows that are not shadows. The earth breathes slow and deep. We have left the gods of the waves behind us. We enter the territory of the sleeping earth gods. They do not trespassers. They demand reverence and caution. We feel the change in the air, the weight of the coming silence. The journey shifts now from the horizontal sweep of the ocean to the vertical climb into the heart of the great land. The mystery is this silence, the deep, ancient, impenetrable silence. We prepare the oars for a different kind of pull, a rhythmic, slower, more burdened stroke. We look at the darkness of the riverbanks, and we ask ourselves, what sleeps in those deep roots? What ancient thing waits for us far inland, beyond the reach of the calming sea, beyond the reach of the familiar sun? We prepare for the land that time forgot, we prepare for the journey up the serpent's spine, a journey where the water flows slow and thick with secrets, a journey into the silent dark heart of the East, a place where the great river narrows, a place where the legends warn us to turn back, a place where the earth itself begins to moan. Next time on HISTORY, we begin the terrifying inland river ascent, the passage where the woods close in and the shadows learn to speak. Do they speak of treasure, or do they speak of doom? A terrible reckoning awaits us in the darkness. Join us as the journey turns treacherous, and the river begins to demand its own bloody toll. I remember the fire, always the fire, the memory of the last fire on shore before the long shad. It was not loud, but it demanded attention. A low, hungry crackle deep in the throat of the wood, the scent of burning pine, sweet resin heavy in the air. The glow was not frantic red, but an ancient amber, a warmth we knew we would lose entirely, gone entirely to the endless gray water, a secret forgotten by the sagas. They tell you of silver and fur and slaves. They never tell you what the Vikings truly traded, what they paid for the distance, what they gave away to the sea. This is 8. We are adrift in the quiet currency of 900 AD, a Viking trading voyage for sleep, the endless days at sea. The fire is gone now. Only salt crusts the memory, the cold metal of the sea knife against the palm, the cold metal always cold. 8 begins not with a clash, but with a continuance, a deep breath held since the coast disappeared. 3 days ago, 500 heartbeats ago, the longship whispers now. She does not roar. She sighs across the water, the endless rolling gray, the gray that never changes, the gray that steals your thoughts. The horizon is a lie. It promises nothing but more distance, more water, more time stretched thin like wet leather. We are here for trade, but our currency changed long ago. We left the heavy silver rings on the shore. We left the iron and the copper too. Out here, the only things of value are time and quiet, and we trade our sanity for them. The price of passage is your inner voice, the voice that tells you stories, the voice that remembers the shore. The sea demands silence, absolute, unforgiving silence. Listen closely now to the sound of 900 AD. It is not the sound of war. It is the sound of the hull, the low, steady drone of the timbers working, creaking against the endless pressure. The small talk has been swallowed by the waves. The singing faded days ago. What remains is only the rhythm, the hypnotic rhythm of the rowing bench, the oars dipping, then lifting, dipping, then lifting, the steady pulse, the pulse of the north wind, catching the square sail. This is the lullaby of the long journey, a sound that lulls you, a sound that demands surrender. We are trading for sleep, but sleep is a luxury, earned only through exhaustion. The sun is our guide. The stars are our only comfort. The sun rises. The sun sets. The sun rises, and the water remains the same. The gray remains the gray. We watch the wake behind us, a temporary white scar on the dark blue skin of the ocean. The scar heals instantly. The ocean forgets us instantly. It has no memory of the ship that passed. It has no memory of the men who strained against its indifference. Our thoughts become slow, heavy as waterlogged oak. We stop counting the days. We start counting the patterns. The way the water breaks against the bow. The way the foam spits back at the sky. The repetition. The steady, endless repetition. The true secret of the Viking voyage is not the finding of new lands. It is the losing of the old self. You shed your needs. You shed your names. You become a creature of the wind, a slave to the current. The fire is gone. The warmth is a ghost. Only the gray remains. The sea asks you one question, always one question. Can you endure the emptiness? Can you endure the silence? Can you survive the slow erasure of everything you thought you were? The trade is simple. Your time for their distance. Your life for the voyage. Listen to the sound now. The hypnotic drone. The steady breath. The slow march of the Northmen toward the horizon. A place that never arrives. A place that simply moves away as you approach. We keep moving. We keep rowing. For the reward is not the silver. The reward is the simple unburdened of traveling. Slowly, slowly, through the great cold, empty heart of the sea. The fire whispers now. A low tired the wood is damp still. We pulled it from the shore drift. It sweats black resin. The scent of burning pine oil fights the brine, fights the heavy sour smell of wet wool, wool that has held the North Sea 3 days too long. We sit hunched, waiting for the inner warmth, the warmth that must travel bone deep. The cold is not outside tonight. The cold lives inside the ribs of the men. A deep mineral pain, a constant aching reminder. The fire breathes a low, steady light, an amber heart in the crushing dark. Look closely at the faces around the heat, faces carved by wind and worry. They are Vikings, yes, raiders, traders, fathers. But look closer still. Look at the cost of the voyage. The silver bands they carry are heavy. The furs are thick and soft. Yet the true cargo is fatigue, a kind of sleep debt that never yields. They traded for wealth, they paid with quiet suffering. The moral gray is smeared across every ledger sheet. This slow travel, this endless horizontal movement, it drains the clarity from the soul. It leaves only need, only the desire for the next safe haven, the next flicker of fire. The trade goods are clean, polished steel, heavy sacks of grain. But how many nights did the farmer sleep poorly for that grain? How many days did the trapper walk until his feet bled for that fur? Every item of value carries a human burden. The cost of the silver ring is often a lost soul, a lost hour, a lost piece of memory. And we burn the pine now. We burn it to forget the sound of the wind, the endless howl of the open ocean. The pine burns, and the flames lick upward, reaching not for the stars, but for silence. Silence is the ultimate luxury on the trading journey. The shifting of boots, the metallic clink of iron rations, the hacking cough of a man whose chest is filled with sea mist. These are the constant lullabies of the longboat. This is the music of profit. The fire crackles gently. The smoke is thick and sweet. It clings to the leather, tunics the heavy belts. It perfumes the damp hair. We watch the embers glow and fade. Glow and fade. A small rhythm against the enormous chaos of the dark. The dampness seeps up from the ground. A constant enemy. The iron shield against the cold has failed. We rely now only on the fire's grace, on the momentary illusion of safety. This temporary comfort is all we ask. We tell ourselves we are strong. We are warriors. We are the sea wolves. But when the light drops low and the cold bites the hands, we are just men seeking sleep, seeking the cessation of the endless day. The journey demands endless vigilance. It asks for sacrifice of deep true rest. And when the body cannot rest, the mind begins to wander into shadowed places. It asks questions without answers. Was the silver worth the fear? Was the trade worth the time lost from home? The fire knows the answer. The fire knows the weight of the moral gray. It burns, it whispers, it promises nothing, only momentary warmth. And the men watch the flickering amber heart, waiting for the dawn tea. Hay wish would never come, because dawn means returning to the water, returning to the endless cold, to the rhythmic slap of the waves. The scent of burning pine lingers, a final sensory comfort. The cold waits just beyond the glow, always waiting, always patient. The fire burns. The fire remembers. It burns, it burns, it burns. The scent of pine smoke settles heavy now. The flickering amber glow of the fires dies down to ash. The voyage is over. The long, slow sleep of the sea is done. But the waking world they returned to was never the same. They brought back more than silver, more than silk, more than slaves. They brought back the map of the world reshaped. The map in their minds burned brighter than any torch they carried. The dust settles now, the deep, quiet dust of history. It blankets the harbors where the longships docked. It covers the ledgers where the profits were tallied. And we are left searching the silence for the sound of their return, the shouting, the laughter, the heavy tread of the victorious homecomers. That sound is gone, but the echo remains, the profound, deep echo of their daring. We see the foundations of their houses now, cold gray stone against the stubborn earth. The stone remembers the weight of their ambitions. The stone remembers the hunger that drove them across the black water. We speak of legacy, but legacy is a shadow, a long shifting shadow cast by a brief, powerful light. Their light was trade. Their light was the movement of goods, the unending exchange that makes the world turn. But what about the things they intentionally left behind? The things they burned before they set foot on shore? The ritual abandonment that history forgets to record. The beautiful, cruel mystery of the unwanted artifact. We find the rings. We find the broken amber beads. We find the proof of their riches, but never the proof of their regret. They lived so loud and died so quickly, leaving behind only these scattered whispers of bone and rust. The saga is clear on the facts of the trade, the dates, the names, the destinations known. But the saga is silent on the dreams they shared, the nightmares they suffered when the endless days refused to end. They carried secrets in the hollows of their teeth, secrets they dared not speak even to their priests, secrets sealed by the overwhelming weight of the ocean. We look at the burial mounds now rising like silent green ships, anchored forever in the cold northern soil. They are not just graves, they are libraries of quiet. They hold the final inventory, the true final tally. And that inventory is always incomplete, always missing the final critical piece, the piece that explains why they endured the cold, the piece that explains the nature of their terrifying sleep. Was it gold? Was it power? Was it just the need to see what lay beyond? The cold answer is always buried deeper than the spade can reach. It is sealed inside the stone, inside the bone, inside the enduring heart of the North. We finish this surrounded by their quiet monuments. We finish knowing the trade routes, but not the true road of their hearts. We understand the journey, but not the profound, devastating finality of the return. The fire is ash, the ships are splinters. The silver is melted down and recast. The legacy remains a stubborn, cold, hard truth, but the mystery hovers just above the surface of the soil, a ghost breath over the peat. We have chased them across the waves. We have found them standing on the shore, but we have not yet looked high enough. We have not yet understood the terrible cold guidance that steered them home. They relied on the stars. They trusted the sun. But above all, they feared and revered the sky itself, the terrifying white fire that watched every single hour. The Northeljoes, the light of the north. It was their god, their map, their terrifying omen. But what did that celestial flame demand of them? What did they whisper to the blinding dance above the fjord? Something ancient, something demanding, something far older than Odin. Next time, we stop looking at the ships and the silver. We look straight up into the silent, endless dark. We seek the horrifying celestial secret the Vikings carried in their very blood, a secret that was never ever written down. The fire breathes a sound, a deep, steady crackle. The wood gives way slow. Slow, slow. Amber light spills out, painting the faces of the weary men. The scent of burning pine, resin. The sweet smoke rises like a whispered prayer. They watch the embers fade, red to black, red to black. That warmth on the cheek, that stinging comfort, is the last memory of the land. It is the last solid ground. They will know for months. The sea takes everything. The sea takes their rhythm. The sea takes their silence. But here is the secret of the longship voyage, a secret forgotten by the sagas. It was not the storms that broke them. It was the silence, the endless unending silence of the horizon. How do you sleep when the world is nothing but water? How do you rest when the sun never truly sets? On the edge of the known world, the light lingers, a long silver thread. This is the voyage for sleep, the long journey to the markets of the East. 900 years ago, this is the North Sea swallowing the sun and spitting it back out. Hour after hour after hour, the great ship moves. She moves slow. She moves steady. The timbers groan in low protest. A low, deep breath against the water. The language of the wood is simple. It says, keep going. It says, I hold you. It says, I am tired. Listen closely now to the sound beneath the keel, the constant rhythmic hush of water being sliced. It is not a crashing wave, not a terrifying roar. It is a hypnotic whispering rush, 1,000 tiny voices, promising nothing but more water, more distance, more day. The men are curled beneath their hides, wet oilskin against chilled skin. There is no true darkness here, only the pale smudge of the northern sky. The light is a burden. The light denies them the simple mercy of the void. They carry iron. They carry furs. They carry the hunger for silver. But most precious, most desired, is the simple gift of rest. They dream of fire, of that small amber glow, of the heat against the skin. They dream of the scent of peat smoke, of the packed earth floor. Dreams are dangerous things out here. Dreams remind them what they have lost. The fixed point, the safety, the silence of the solid world. The master of the ship sleeps light, a hand always stretched toward the tiller. He is listening, not for the enemy's oar, but for the change in the water's voice, a shift in the hush, a warning sigh. They sail by the sunstone. When the clouds are thick, a crystal eye finding the hidden light. They sail by the stars. When the thin veil of night allows it, they sail mostly by instinct, by the endless feel of the sea floor beneath them. The days blend, one into the next. The sun rises white and fierce, sets silver and reluctant. The only measurement of time is the burning of the tallow lamp, a tiny controlled fire, a small memory of comfort, held captive in the belly of the ship. They must divide the darkness, the brief moments of true deep blue, into segments of duty. 2 hours awake, 4 hours trying to forget the sway, trying to forget the cold, damp grip, trying to conquer the silence, the salt crusts on their lips, on their rough wool cloaks. They become creatures of the sea, losing the memory of dryness, losing the memory of stillness. They are carried toward the market, carried away from sleep. The secret of the long journey is endurance, not of strength, but of patience, the endless, unending patience of watching the horizon for something, anything, to break the slow, silver monotony, the silence, the long light, the slow, steady rhythm of the sea. the fire breathes tonight. It whispers in the black wood, a dry, hungry sound. The resin splits sharp like a scream. A scent of burning pine fills the throat. An amber glow fights back the endless sea night, flickering light on faces etched by salt and doubt. Look closely at the flame. You think you know the Vikings. You know the axes, the raids, the speed. But what did they truly trade for? What forgotten secret rode heavy in the longship's hold? The real treasure was never gold. It was the terrifying silence of unending days, and the moral price paid just to survive the slow, cruel journey home. This is not a tale of heroes. This is a reckoning by the rail. The cold is a slow invader. It does not shock like a knife. It presses down a crushing weight of water and air. It finds the seams in the thick wool. It slips past the oilskin. It rests right on the ribcage, a dull ache that never leaves. Never leaves, never leaves. The men shift by the fire, silent shadows hunched low. The warmth only touches the skin, facing the flame. The back is a vast geography of ice. It smells of stale fish oil and wet leather, of unwashed humanity packed too close. The deep, heavy breath of men who dream of solid ground. They do not speak of the prices paid. The whispers stay, locked behind the teeth. The wood crackles, a nervous rhythm, a rhythm of guilt and necessity. The moral gray coats everything out here. The steel, the faces, the choices. Think of the decision made 3 days past, when the provisions ran thin, when the weakest hand had to be pulled from the rope, not from malice, not from hate, but from the brutal arithmetic of survival. One life sacrificed to fuel the breathing of the many. The ledger of the sea is unforgiving, unforgiving and absolutely final. The sea hums a low frequency note, a constant deep vibration that enters the bone. The mast creaks a lonely lullaby. Creak and sigh. The ship's timber absorbs the story. The wood remembers the compromises made. It smells like decay beneath the brine, like desperation masked by distance. The smell of slow rot in the cargo hold. The smell of fear clinging to the beard. The fire tries its best to purify the air, but the odor of necessity remains. A sharp metallic tang. They stare into the embers. They see the villages they left behind. They see the choices they will never confess. The silent compromises that allowed the boat to keep moving. Every mile gained is weighted by a loss they cannot name. A quiet horror buried beneath the wool and the waves. The flame is the only honesty left. It shows the lines of weariness deep in the brow, the sleepless nights that stretch into an eternity of gray water. It shows the red raw knuckles, the hands that held the dying, the hands that pushed away the starving. It shows the hunger in the eyes, a hunger not just for food, but for meaning. For a moment, when the choices felt simple, it is easier to be a hero on the shore. It is simple to speak of glory and rich trade. Out here, where the ocean owns the horizon completely, where the water is black velvet and indifferent, the moral landscape shrinks to a tiny circle of firelight. And in that circle, there are no heroes, only survivors, only endless waiting, waiting for the wind to turn, waiting for the penetrating chill to retreat, waiting for the memory of the scream to fade. The cold keeps the memory sharp. The cold reminds them of the cost. The true cost of the voyage is measured in sleepless souls. It is measured in the heavy silence around the fire, a silence that promises no forgiveness, only more days, more endless days. The longship sits still now. The journey is over. The mast shadows stretch long and thin across the foreign shoreline. The air hangs thick and heavy, not with the salt spray of the wide open sea, but with the lingering scent of damp wool and old spices, cloves and cinnamon clinging fiercely to the timber, a quiet memory of the distant sun. The men have scattered. The silver has been counted. The stories have been told and retold until they sound less like truth and more like soft, familiar chants, a low, deep lullaby of movement. But the true legacy of this great, slow journey is not measured in the glint of coin. It is measured in the distance traveled within the heart, the bending of the mind to new sounds, new tastes, new silent ways of being. They crossed the boundary, the sharp invisible edge of the known world. They found the great deep rivers. They endured the endless days of light, the sun refusing to sleep, the earth spinning, and never stopping its visual display of perpetual energy. The legacy is the memory of that endless day. The legacy is the river current, always pushing, always pulling, a restless force now, forever woven into their northern stillness. They left behind more than silver. They left behind the idea of connection, the fragile understanding that the world was vast and rich and terribly complicated. They left echoes of their rough language on the lips of strangers 1,000 miles away. They left the shadow of the dragon head imprinted on the minds of those who had never seen the ocean. But where did the roads go? The great trade networks. They were not carved in stone. They were lines drawn lightly upon the water. And the ice, they were promises whispered on the wind. And the wind is faithless. The wind forgets. One year the ships came. The sound of the oars, rhythmic and reassuring. The next year, a few less. A slow diminishment. A slow fatting back into the northern mist. The memory of the routes became hazy. The paths overgrown by forest silence. The jetties that once welcomed the heavy cargo now crumble back into the dark water. Soft gray dust returning to the sea. A profound historical vanishing. The silence swallowing the immense effort. The silence swallowing the ambition. The silence swallowing the endless journey. Why did they stop? Why did the movement cease? Was it the rising cost? Was it the slow creep of new borders? Was it the simple human fatigue of traveling too far, too often, too close to the edge of the world? Historians puzzle over this closing. The maps remain, but the momentum is gone. The great river of trade froze over, and the secrets of the distant kings, the secrets of the sleeping journey, were locked away under ice and time. The Vikings returned to the shadows. Their ships hauled ashore, but their deepest secrets, they did not keep them on the waves. The knowledge they truly valued was hidden from the gaze of the restless sea. It was placed deep within the cold, protective embrace of the earth. They were travelers in life, but their greatest works, their most profound statements of power, were reserved for the silence of their final rest. The great mounds, the silent hills of the north, they stand watch, hiding what the sea could not keep. What happens when the traveler finally stops moving? What happens when the restless heart accepts the weight of the soil? We must disturb that sleep. We leave the longship now, moored forever in the past, and we turn our gaze downward to the dark, hungry earth. Next time, we ignore the whispers of the waves, and we listen to the silence of the ancient burial grounds. What was buried with the kings? What forbidden knowledge awaits us beneath the moss and the peat? What power sleeps in the shadow of the silent hills? 10 begins. In the deep, dark earth, the memory begins with heat. The fire, months ago, but the scent clings. The sweet, thick scent of burning pine, pitch-soaked wood glowing deep orange, a low amber hum, not the raging fire of battle, but the safe fire of the longhouse hearth, a sound like whispers, the crackle of the great dry logs, the snap of the hidden resin pockets. It spoke of safety. It promised warmth. Now there is only the vast, wet dark, only the cold Black Sea. You think the Vikings sailed for silver, for rough-cut gold, or heavy amber beads. You think they sought conquest and coin. They sought something much rarer. They traded their comfort, their very waking hours, for a forgotten secret, the trade of deep, unbroken silence, the rhythm of the voyage itself, a thing more precious than any coin. We are adrift now, 900 years since this timber sailed, drifting into the great emptiness, the endless North Sea. This is 10. The slow, slow sway begins. Listen to the gnar. The longship groans its tired old song, a deep wooden sigh. The hull takes the weight of the endless water. The water slaps and sucks and retreats. Slap, suck, retreat. This sound is the drumbeat of the deep past, the most ancient music. They are carrying hides and tools and dried fish, but the real cargo is time. Time stretched thin and suspended. There is no clock face here. There is no bell to mark the hour. Only the slow movement of the sun and the slow, slow wind. The wind whistles its cold, high tune. It tugs at the rough woolen sails. It bites the exposed skin of the hands. Rough wool against cold skin against cold sea. The only constant is the creak of the mast where it meets the deck, the creak of the ropes pulling taut, then loosening, the creak and the groan, the creak and the groan. These sounds become the measure of their breathing. They breathe in the creak. They exhale the groan. Endless days at sea. The water below is a shifting gray slab, always moving, always present. The sea is everything. It is the floor, the ceiling, the vast surrounding world. Look at the horizon. It is blurred by mist and salt spray. There is no edge. There is only more gray, more water, more time. The men huddled in their thick, rough layers. They are trading everything they know, trading the solid earth for the fluid void, trading speech for silence. They must learn the patience of stone, the patience of the drift. The body learns to accommodate the roll, the subtle side-to-side motion, the slow sway. It is a perpetual rocking cradle, a massive cradle built of oak and iron, rocking them across the forgotten maps, rocking them toward true deep exhaustion. And that exhaustion is the gift. It is the ultimate trade, the fatigue that erases the worries of yesterday, the fatigue that demands immediate rest, rest that pulls you down deep, down past the dreams and the fears, into the essential rhythm of the ship itself, the slap and the suck and the creak, the slow rhythmic pulse of the journey. Let the memory of the fire fade. Let the warmth disappear. Embrace the cold, steady movement, the slow passage of the past. We join them now into the deep quiet of the longship. Drift, drift, drift. The silence is settling in, the vast historical silence. Listen closely. The creak and the groan are calling us home, calling us into the sleep of the sea. Slow, slow, slow. Let the rhythm take hold now. Let the voyage begin. We are sailing. We are sleeping into the 900-year-old night. The amber light held still, a small circle of truth. On the endless rolling deck, the fire hiss and spit. It was the only honest sound left, the only sound that was not water or the deep sigh of men who had traveled too long, who had seen too much. The resin smell burned sharp, a sweet false comfort against the true smell of the sea, the ancient deep stink of salt and fish guts, and the unwashed wool that clung to the sweat of months. It was the smell of necessity. It was the smell of survival, a thin shield against the cold that never leaves you, the cold that lives beneath the nails and settles in the hollows of your bones. The flames danced slow, a hypnotic slow dance, a lure, a promise, a lie. We watch the fire because the darkness holds the memory of the things we took, the things we traded, the things we left behind. They call us traders. They write of silver arm rings and fine silk from Miklagard, but they do not write of the cost, the silent weight we carry, the moral gray of the long ships. A slave in the hold breathes shallow, a cargo of sorrow beneath the planks, and the cold touches them too, the same unforgiving cold. Does the silver we gain outweigh the human cost? We tell ourselves the journey is worth it. The future requires this risk, this taking, this hard bargain. But the fire shows us only shadows, and the shadows look like ghosts. We came for wealth. We came for the fame of the journey, but the sea demands a tithe, a piece of your humanity, a sliver of your soul. The smoke rises thick and slow, a gray prayer to silent gods who never answer the calls of men at sea, who only watch the journey unfold, watch the choices made in the damp twilight. The silence stretches, a heavy wool blanket muffling the world. Only the gentle crackle remains, the wood complaining softly, yielding its heat, its life, its final breath. The sea whispers its constant warning, a soft, repetitive hiss. We are small things, it reminds us, small and transient. We lean toward the heat, our faces raw from the wind, our eyes heavy from endless vigilance. The days blur into weeks, the sun a stranger, the moon a cold observer. We seek sleep, the deep black sleep of forgetting, but the mind insists on reviewing the ledger, the tally of the trade, the faces of those who cried out. The fire casts long fingers, stretching across the grain of the wood that was once a forest, now a vessel carrying ambition, carrying despair. The cold reminds us we are fragile. The cold reminds us we are flesh. And the silence reminds us that we are alone with our choices, alone with the gray bargain, the necessary cruelty, the silver shining cold and hard, a mirror reflecting only guilt, and the slow, slow burn of the pine, trying to keep the dark away, trying to keep the truth away. The rhythm of the water, the endless sound of waiting, waiting for the harbor, waiting for the reckoning, waiting for the warmth that never fully comes. We watch the embers fade, red to deep ochre to ash, and the cold rushes in a familiar embrace, the companion of the long journey. The cold, the deep biting cold, and the gray silence of the sea, waiting, 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 for sleep to finally claim us, a tired, cruel sleep, under the vast, indifferent stars. The silver is weighed now, the furs tallied and traded, the longships pulled high onto the shore for the last winter, the endless days at sea, the sun that never dipped below the horizon in the north, the grinding cold of the river ice. All these memories now settle. They settle like the fine dust of the trade routes, a pale gray film over the heart of the traveler. We watched the fire burn then, a fierce yellow hunger. Now we watch the embers. The deep amber glow is retreating, retreating into the heart of the wood. The heat that warmed our hands through the longest nights, the heat that drove back the shadows. This too is fading. What remains of the journey? What remains of the memory? Not the cargo, not the coins, but the ache in the shoulder, the ghost of the salt spray on the lips, the silence that follows a great roar. The journey is a testament to motion. The legacy is stillness. Think of the silence now, the deep silence of the grave, the silence of the long sleep of winter, the silence that swallows the names of the lost oarsmen. We traced the routes they took. We imagined the fear they carried, the hunger they endured for the sake of a single ounce of silver. But the true burden they carried, the secret they never spoke. What drove them across the vastness? What pulled them east beyond the known maps? Was it only greed, only the need for gold? Or was it a deeper, restless need? A need for the world to feel smaller. A need for the horizon to finally yield. This is the mystery. This is the hidden heart of the voyage. The motive is dust. The motive is air. The motive is the whisper of the forgotten wind. We can never know the look in their eyes when they saw the market city rise from the steppe. We can never truly hear the music that played in their distant dreams. We can only watch the smoke rise. We can only feel the passing of the hours, the hypnotic drift of time, the fire that gave us light, the fire that gave us voice. It cracks now with a final small resignation. The structure of the wood is crumbling. The red glow is yielding to the pale gray ash. The ash of the voyage, the ash of the tale. The embers whisper now. They whisper of the past. They whisper of the sleep. The history becomes a lullaby, a slow, low, steady murmur, telling you that the fear has passed, that the struggle is done. The great journey is over. The great sleep begins. Let the cold air find you now. Let the darkness envelope the edges of the room. The story is finished for this long season. The fire is dying. This is what remains always. The echo of human striving. The knowledge that someone somewhere endured this journey so that we might rest now. We might remember now. Nasrallah thanks you for traveling this path. May the legacy of their vigilance bring you peace. May the silence of their journey bring you deep and final rest. The last ember shrinks. The light is gone. Sleep now.